Okay, so
Yes.
you just want to say what your name is and give a brief introduction about yourself?
My name is Harold Friesen. My career has been in education, so approximately 40 years, and I've taught grade 7 through a doctorate.
Well,
It happens that my wife is also an educator, and she has had all the kindergarten through 7th grade. So there's 1 year overlap. That's kind of our background.
yeah. Nice. So, do you have anything in particular you'd like to talk about today?
My preference would be you ask the question and I'll try to answer them. There's much smarter people than I am.
Yes. So, in your life, what would you say was the biggest event that you went through?
First of all, being 90 years of age, there's many events, and I'm trying to determine. There's many I'd like to give you, really.
Yes.
But the one I think I'm going to use is, I was born in 1932. My parents lived in the state of Minnesota, southwestern part, and they had homesteaded a farm. But by 32, the Great Depression had started in 29, and quite frankly, even though the severity of the Depression may have variations to it, went until World War II. So I'm born in the early part of the Depression. I am 3 months of age when the sheriff shows up on our yard with one other person and evicts our family because they could not make their payment. It's not that they didn't have grain to sell, but the prices were low. They had animals, but the price is too low. Your history books will tell you many cattle, heads of cattle, were slaughtered and just put in a ravine and covered up. A question I might ask, even though you're asking which is the most difficult, is if you had been in my shoes, even though I do not understand at 3 months, but I was alive.
Yes.
And if you had this event taking place and my mother's inheritance went with the purchase of the farm and you are now asked to leave, I am the 9th living child at that time. If you had been my father, what decision would you have made for yourself and your family?
If I would have been your father, I would have hopefully tried to find work somewhere, anywhere. Just try to make enough money to feed my kids. Like, the next years might suck, but like, we'll get out of it, we'll survive, and hopefully in the future we can get it all back somehow.
Okay, I think the trait that you're saying, survival, is kind of inherent in every human being.
Yes.
Well, it might surprise you to know that he was 39 years of age at the time. He was the oldest of 15 children.
Wow.
And he decided to go back home and help his parents, and left Mom with the 9 children.
Oh my.
Now, if you were my mother, a 3-month-old baby who's sickly, March can be a treacherous month, winter-wise.
Yes.
What would you suggest she should have done?
Well, 9 children is a lot to care for by yourself, especially during depression. So, I mean, I would try my best, but if you couldn't make it work, you'd have to give the children to someone else, probably.
One of my first cousins hitched a wagon to a pair of horses, big Belgian horses, and took us to the nearest village. Back in 1950, there were a total of 1,732 of us living in this little village. There are common denominators. We were German. If I say the Depression basically lasted till the beginning, one of our enemies was Germany. My parents spoke Low German,
Yes.
but German can also be spoken in Low German, but Low German does not have a written language. So you almost have to live in a cluster that whatever is being said, there is a commonness of understanding because you can't read. But when World War II comes along, lo and behold, maybe I was in 3rd grade, maybe 2nd. In our home, we only spoke Low German. But the note that I was given to the teacher, I couldn't read. It was in English. When it got home and it was interpreted, thou wilt speak English only. Compare that to the education today when many languages are being taught as 2nd and 3rd and 4th, and plus, but mine was taken away. Today I cannot speak Low German.
Yeah.
That kind of gives you a background. We will wind up a welfare case because jobs were almost unavailable, certainly not in little towns like 1732.
Yes.
It turns out that my wife, later on, when I meet her and learn about her family, there were 3 in that family. My wife is the middle child. The other 2 are boys on either side. But the mother, with the birth of the 3rd child, was diagnosed with postpartum psychosis. In those days, that meant you were crazy.
Yes.
And so, with the sheriff, he couldn't find a job. He could not support his family. and take care of the kids. But there was one job anybody could get in that day, and that was the military. So he enlisted, not knowing that Pearl Harbor was going to take place, and died December 25, 1942. My wife becomes an orphan. I'm just kind of giving you a kind of a background of thoughts that run deeply, are carved into my mind. That doesn't make it right, nor does it make it wrong. But, you see, if I drop back to my father, after 1 year he couldn't follow the house rules as he would have when he was a teenager. At 39, I think some of the rules that parents lay down for their children would be impossible to follow. He will reunite with the family, and there will be 5 more children born. If that isn't enough, 11 of us were boys.
Oh man.
Don't you kind of, sometimes I would tell my students I had a happy childhood. Why? The absence of females. That would cut the class in 2 sections, one supportive and one animosity. But again, it's a play on words. But that has every last unit of that family has never, once we were able to work our way out of the welfare state, we're proud people. We'll do anything except that which is illegal in order to provide for our families. Every one of them has stayed off welfare by choice, not by mandate. I guess I'll give you just one little more insight. A lot of young people feel that their parents ought to give them an allowance, that you kind of owe me. I don't think that's what I've been expressing.
No, certainly not.
Then find a job. My first job after high school, I graduated at 17, but my high school record, so I'm talking about the last 4 years, freshmen were considered part of high school then. Today you have middle school and then it's divided differently. But my school record shows that 1 out of every 3 school days I was absent.
Working?
Whatever it took. I have shoveled by a scoop shovel, grain shovel, lumped coal from a railroad car all by myself at age 14.
Wow.
After graduation, I went to what I call the big town, Omaha, Nebraska. I got $1.04 an hour. That I think amounts to $41.60 a week. Forget the tax when you make an income that low. My board and room was $50 a month.
Mm-hmm.
You could see about what percent that would be.
Yes.
25% at least is gone right off the top.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't even got to work at it.
Yeah.
I'm getting food 6 days a week, but only 2 meals a day. Sunday, no food.
Mm-hmm.
I saved 50% of what I earned, making $1.04.
Wow. That's very good.
Young people, if you want it bad enough, if you want to make a contribution to the community that you reside in, it's available.
Mm-hmm.
But work hasn't hurt anybody. Now I'll use one expression, then I'll let you ask the second question. You can put in different terms, but I think the one I like maybe best is, in any experience that we may have, when you allow mediocrity to come in and play a part in the decision-making process as it presents itself, excellence flees.
Mm-hmm.
Every person ought to examine the talent that has been given it from birth. I've recorded a lot of greats. If you happen to be a B student, if you happen to be, but you're capable of making an A, and you decide not to work to get the A when you're capable of,
Mm-hmm.
that turns me wild.
Mm-hmm.
I could take an F student that just cannot perform as to whatever the policies might be. If it comes in for extra help, I will be available. I will give you private lessons free,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll get you to a passing grade. I didn't say it was going to be an A, but nonetheless, you have to contribute to the cause. Okay, so much for that.
Yeah, that was good. Thank you. I agree with you. I think you should always work hard, and saving money is very important. So, yeah. I would like to ask you though, when you moved to Omaha and you didn't eat on Sundays, was that because of money or religious stuff?
That's just the way the boarding house, the one I was in,
Mm-hmm.
that was their policy. So no, it doesn't come from a religious element. I didn't even have $50 when I applied. The paper said good food, and that was enough for me. But and after I told her I didn't have $50, but what I would do, I would get a job, and as quick as I got a paycheck, she would get paid.
Mm-hmm.
My brother, 5 years older than I, was with me. He had taken me there. I didn't have any transportation. And she said to the two of us, "You seem like you're a nice young fella." And I believed every word she said.
Yeah.
But she says, "For you, I'll make an exception. you give me $25 and I'll let you for 2 weeks. Now, if my math is correct, $25 when you have zero is just as tough as 50 when you have zero.
Yeah.
You're still hungry.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first time my brother said, I will lend you the first $50. So it came from a family member, and it's been a standing joke throughout our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Have you paid me back yet? I have.
You have? Nice. Very good. So you said as a child you could speak Low German?
Yeah.
But you forgot how to since then because the schools made you speak English?
I guess the way I'll answer that is some of the teachers were drafted. We had a draft then as we moved into the 40s.
Yes.
You don't have the draft today. And let's see now. Anyway, I slipped a call here.
It's all right. Take your time.
Ask the question one more time, then.
Well, I was going to ask you, like, if any of your family members still do speak Low German.
Oh.
Any of them forgot.
Well, yes, the older ones were able to maintain it. And if I'm the 9th child, I would hear them use words and I could then, converse with them. But I have one older brother left who's 98 that can speak Low German.
Really? 98?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's good. So, because you spoke German during World War II, did people, like, judge you for that or, like, think you were, I don't know, because, Germany was the enemy, obviously. And so because you spoke German, did you receive any backlash for that?
I'm going to answer that by saying not personally. You just knew. There's an aura that takes place, a feeling. And perception is reality to those people. I can tell you, there are history books that have recorded 2 different towns in Minnesota that were basically of German descent. One of them, 2 trains on the same track came in from maybe 100 miles away from the town I could name. I won't for practical purposes. It's in the history books.
Okay.
What were they planning on doing? Giving these Germans a hard time. They thought it was their duty. We were their enemy. And we were citizens of America. In my town, the county seat, 12 miles from my village, a group, I'm going to say a small group, but a group captured the mayor, put him in a baby carriage, and wheeled him up and down the road, making fun.
Because he was German?
Yes, we were the enemy. We spoke a different language that they couldn't understand. And then obviously, that also kind of plays in as to who you are. I think I can read people very well. And I think part of it comes from you had to pick your battles wisely. We were too few in number to resist. But I don't think anybody would protest today. Yet you should well be aware, many Japanese on the West Coast were interned and put in camps for the duration of the war. They were Americans. But those are things that are done by, well, intentioned citizens. But that's not what I mean by a positive contribution to the community.
Yeah. So, like when you went to school, were you scared to speak in German? Or you just could not have?
I don't know how long. I can't recall how long it took before. Oh, I know what I was going to say before. The draft, they took some of our teachers that spoke Low German. They taught, even in Low German. Well, then, who do you replace them with? Was an outsider, and that one only knows English, so now they're speaking a different language. How long does it take for a student to make the transfer? If I'm absent the last 4 years, 1 out of every 3 days working, that's hard enough to make up. I'm always behind.
Yeah.
I graduated at the bottom third of my high school class. Maybe I am too proud. I guess I could be held accountable. I think I'm the only one in that class, and we had some very intelligent classmates. I'm the only one with a doctorate. And we had to pay that up front, or you could not attend the university that I attended. You had to have cash. Today, they will try to, hey, we got a loan, we got a scholarship. But now notice, part of the conversation that exists out there is, should the students have their loan canceled? That's a pretty tough question.
They already did cancel a lot of them.
And are they, how long are they grateful if it were to be forgiven?
Yeah.
See, the proof is in the pudding. It's not the fact. You made a contract. I have made contracts. I don't expect that contract to be changed for me. I have to abide by what it says. And that then again makes that composite whoever I am.
Yeah, also it's because there's the people like you who like worked hard for their money, like manual labor, and they're paying taxes, which ends up paying for these people to go get their degrees when they spent their time and effort working hard and not going to college, but they get punished for that, but the other people get rewarded. So I agree with you, like it doesn't make sense why it could just be dissolved when you said you'd pay it back.
And that's where, again, education, I would advocate that for everybody. But having said that, I do not minimize the experience of working. Blend those combinations together and then choose what you are most capable of doing and the effectiveness of that. Let me, if I may,
Okay.
when I got out of the service from San Ysidro, California, it was only a small base, but it's on the border of Mexico. There were 3 helicopter squadrons and 1 drone squadron. I happened to be in the drone squadron, but when the Korean conflict was over, and now I'm being released, a lot of them that enlisted might have enlisted for 4 years, and you have to still spend the remainder of that time. In my case, having been brought up through the reserves, when that Korean conflict was over, I was dismissed. So now I'm hitchhiking back to Minnesota.
Hitchhiking.
I wouldn't even spend money. The government pays you money to go from point A to B. Those are the times I would save that money and put my thumb out there. Today, that would be very hazardous.
Yes.
It's dangerous out there. It's not that I didn't encounter some rather strange individuals, but
Yeah.
my brother, just older than I by a year and a half, he and I bonded as youth and stayed that way our entire lives. He's deceased. He was in the Air Force on the B-36 as a blister gunner. Those are the biggest planes America has ever made. He lived in Roswell, New Mexico. He was stationed in Roswell, New Mexico. So now I take the southern route. I'm going to give him a visit and then turn north to Minnesota. When I got to his place, his oldest child was born, who was 2 weeks of age. His wife had a medical problem due to childbirth, and so she needed extensive surgery. He tried to get off that the government should allow him to take care of his baby. No grandparents lived in the area, and they did not give him that permission. So he looked at me and he said, "Harold, would you take care of this baby?" And I told him yes. I took care of that baby. I made the formula. I changed the diapers, you name it, for 4 weeks. Grandma from Fort Worth did come in, and when she sees what I'm doing, making the formula and so forth and so on, she says he can do a better job than I, and went back to Fort Worth.
Really?
I have taken care of the youngster. He became a navigator in the military. Both my brother and his son have spent more than 20 years each giving to their country, so forth and so on. And he then asked me after those 4 weeks, which he was able to come home, I'm kind of financially strapped. Why don't you get a job here and live with us and pay me this amount of rent and help me out? And once again, I said yes. All I had was my Navy outfit as far as clothing was concerned. I went to town to buy some civilian clothing and then asked that salesman, do you know of any job available in Roswell? He said, what'd you do in the service? So I told him. He says, there's a radio station here by KSWS. Why don't you go over there and apply? Well, I walked over there, and some people call it a coincidence. I would like to give more credit to the eternal being who knows about the future far better than I could imagine. He had a twin brother. They were both at Pearl Harbor when it was struck. His brother died, and he hopped islands with some other servicemen fighting the Japs. I should say Japanese instead of Japs.
It's okay.
But he says, I really don't have, incidentally, he came from Minnesota, so all of a sudden there was a little bond, both in the military, different times. And he said, we have a TV, and TV was brand new. It was developed prior to World War II, but when World War II, they stopped even manufacturing, so you didn't have the sale of TV until, let's say, 45 or 46. Why don't you apply there? Where is it located? On the west side of town. I walked to the west side of town. Met a guy by the name of Mr. Porter. He was a personnel manager, and even when you apply for a job now, you do it through the computer. Here you get to see the person. And he asked me how I got to town. And then he added, before I could answer, and when do you plan on leaving? That's an interesting question. I said, I hitchhiked into town, and the first time I don't like what you guys are doing, I'll be hitchhiking out. You should never give an answer like that.
Wow.
And he hired me.
Even after you said that?
Yes.
Wow.
Now and I lived in the transmitter station 7 miles east of Roswell, up the bluffs of the Pecos River that runs down below. And in the transmitter, when you had live, we didn't even have cable then yet, at that time. It was that new. The tower was 796 feet. What does a guy do when he lives by himself? My nearest neighbor was maybe 2 miles, which I haven't met to this day. You talk about isolation. And you're only on the air about 8 hours a day. It's new. And this is the only station within many miles that you could get. And it included the snow. A lot of those pictures were filled with snow. It's almost like a whiteout. There's only a kind of shadow of Chicago wrestlers. And then the rest is just kind of faded in a kind of a white cloud. Oh, I climbed that tower. It's just ladders on the inside.
Yeah.
Never wore any safety equipment.
Mm-hmm.
One day, 1954, I can only give you this story because the statute of limitations have run out.
Wow, okay.
The engineers from downtown come up to the station and say, Harold, do you ever climb that? Yeah. Well, our customers, our people that are watching our station would like to have the World Series in the fall of 1954. And we have, as engineers, we have designed that if we put 8 antennas and hook them up in parallel at a certain height on the existing tower, we can intercept or steal, is the right word,
Yeah.
signals from Amarillo or from Albuquerque, and there was a third one. Right now it doesn't come to my mind. I strung all the transmission units about 8 feet apart without a bell. Maybe the bars are about that. You're standing in these, and with your tools, you're tightening this. And
Mm-hmm.
I know at least on 2 occasions, I tightened it too much and it snapped. Then your body goes forward,
Mm-hmm.
and then you better make sure you get to the corner post.
Mm-hmm.
The first 2 nights I did not sleep well. In fact, I only got 50 feet the first day, 90 on the second, and after that it really doesn't make any difference.
Mm-hmm.
And I got another guy and we took a 40-foot rope, tied it on the end of one. Those antennas individually would be a little bit longer than here to the wall.
Wow.
Well, you tie one on and pull it up 40 feet and tie it on there and drop the rope until you got 8, and then the other guy goes 40 feet, 80 feet then, and you do that. And then when you get to the 500-foot level, one goes on this, one over here lays on its stomach, and your job is now to push that thing in a 90-degree angle.
Mm-hmm.
And you do that 8 times.
Wow.
And we were able to complete that mission, but I'm here to tell you I should have died.
Mm-hmm.
But once again, the determination to want to contribute. I enjoyed working there, but I did have a religious experience in that building. Wasn't planned by me, but a voice told me I should go to Waxahachie, one word only. I looked under my bed. The second room was my bathroom, and there was nobody in there.
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard the word Waxahachie heretofore.
Yeah.
I had just recently, and you'll have to pardon me a little bit now because I'm of a different religious faith that you have been brought up. That doesn't bother me.
Yeah, it's okay.
But my point is that I had just recently started to go to a church. That word would not disappear for the next 2 hours. And I decided to go to town and to the pastor and ask him, what does this mean? And he says, it means you are to go to college in Waxahachie, Texas, which is in Texas. Now, Texas is a rather large state. I had to look up at the map to find out where Waxahachie was.
Yeah.
That's where I will meet my wife. And in 8 days from now, we will have been married 67 years.
Wow. Congratulations.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I want to kid people and say, and that was with the same woman. Well, because today, you almost have as many divorces or separations or live together than getting a license. That's, I'm family oriented. We have 5 children. Each one, you met one of them there, that's our second one. The first 3 were girls and then 2 boys. But the youngest one has a business in Washington, D.C. He and his partner have built a home on the top of one mountain that overlooks the Shenandoah Valley by hand alone. It's 4.5 stories high. They mixed the cement. They went to different schools to install this. They bought old barns and bought the milling equipment and so forth. Their floor is of black walnut. My son was looking on the computer one day, and it was entitled Castles of West of Virginia. And their home appears by this party to be a castle. You can see 18 miles when the fall foliage sets in.
Wow.
A site, they picked up all the rocks to start the formation. They got tile roofing to make sure the snows go off. It slides off. This again is what I call, he brings back to the society. I have another son who's been a CEO. And the girls are smart as whips. They must have got it from their mothers. They didn't get it from me.
Yeah.
Okay, so much for that part. I might want to ask you, tell me a little bit about your family, if you would.
So, I have one sister, she's younger than me, in the 7th grade right now. And then I have a brother in college. He's a junior, he's studying to be a physical therapist. So, yeah, my dad's a financial advisor. So, he just handles people's money, helps them with investments and saving. And then my mother is a human resource manager at a machine company. They do a lot of contract work for the government, private people.
But now, notice, I could take now the parents and the oldest son, already contributing back. You're on your way whether this is an assignment for you or not, whether you have to make a presentation, I don't really know. However, I can sense just by looking at you that you will be one of those productive people that I would like to see every time I meet somebody. You fit the bill.
Thank you.
And I want to congratulate you, maybe even before you walk across this stage here in about a month. Congratulations for that kind of effort that you put in.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Now, I taught at Friends University for 25 years. Kansas Newman, I started in 1975. I currently hold the emeritus rating. That may not mean much to a lot of people, but quite frankly, if you're worth the effort that you put in, and if you can draw students to your class, I'm really trained as an economist. With your dad being a financial advisor, I probably needed to see him, but that as an economist, that's called a dismal science. Not everybody would like to take it. Now, if it's required and you gotta take it, you have the option of sleeping through my class, but you're gonna get a low grade. And I think it's called F. It's not fine, it's failure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's 50 minutes up.
Do you need to go eat?
Well, no, I'm not gonna eat tonight.
You're not eating?
No. Here, we don't do anything, and therefore the amount of food we are provided is greater than the body needs. It would do well for each of us to kind of discipline ourselves. And so we skip meals occasionally. I'll be up every morning by 5 o'clock doing my exercise.
I visited here a while back, about a year ago, and we did the exercise class. It was fun with the bands. Yeah. So.
Well, it's an attempt to keep whatever energy is available at that time. Within the last year, I find my breathing getting harder and harder, doing absolutely nothing. I wouldn't have even given that a second thought when I was younger. But when I can't even speak distinctly because I'm breathing too hard, I need to preserve whatever time I do have left. And life has been good. I could have shared, but there's still a lot of other things I haven't told you, but my wife and I, we have given parties some money as they go and from a spiritual point of view break the bread of life. Well, our second daughter that you met, she worked for a couple that we were at least partially supporting. When she was finished towards the end of the second year, she gave us a call and said, "Dad, Mom, I'd like for you to come over here. Daughter, we can give it to the ones that are there. There's no sense us being lavish. That's not who we are." I guess that's called conservative, at least from a point of view.
Yeah.
But Ted, you've got to see and experience this. My wife speaks behind me and says, "We'll go." Didn't even get my acceptance thing.
Yeah.
But did only two go? The whole family went. And we spent 2 weeks. And then that couple, unbeknownst to us, said, "We have been here now." This was not their first term, but we've been here 7 years. We need to come back to the States for a year for R&R. Why don't you get a sabbatical from your university and take over, substitute the work that we do for the year we're gone.
Yeah.
But Friends University does not have a sabbatical program. But I'll ask, which I did. Dr. Felix was then our president. He said, "I've been thinking about that. I'll take it to the board." And by the next year, they had a 1-semester sabbatical. I applied. You had to be there 7 years. I just completed my 7th year. And we were able to go to Japan and take over their work. There's a book written by a gaijin, which means foreigner to the Japanese, that refers to Japanese homes. And this was 1982 summer to 1983. We were there 53 weeks, 1 week longer than a year. That refers to the Japanese home as a rabbit hutch.
Are you guys doing okay? Okay.
They refer to it as a rabbit hutch. So even back in 82, they rarely would invite foreigners into their home. I think every Japanese has read that book.
Yeah.
Would you like to guess? Since we didn't speak the Japanese language, in the 53 weeks we were there, how many Japanese homes invited us to have a meal with them?
0 would be my guess.
How much?
0.
0. 45 homes.
45.
Why would they invite? Because they admire educators through high school. When they get to college, that's their playtime. They have to go to the prestigious colleges. They'll have tutors and everything to get them in the best schools, and then they go to sleep, which they shouldn't do.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, you name a food, and each time they would ask what we had had, and then they would provide something else. fugu, which is that poisonous fish. You have to have a special license to prepare. We had that, but we've also had sparrow with just the feather and the head removed, and roasted, and then you crunch down on those bones, and you enjoy it. It was a wonderful year. They treat us like royalty. So that, again, ranks very high, but again, somebody else did it for us in advance. It's not anything we did, other than I've always liked students, and I'll give the shirt off my back if a student wishes to learn the subject that I like. I'm available. Dile Graybill from Derby High School on a competitive economic exam. First, you have to be in a club and you take a test against anybody else that chooses to take a test in that area. He won first place. If you win first place, you now go to the regional and you compete against all the first place winners. He won that. And then he went to the national, and he got first place in the nation. The only one that had friends that had ever won first place in any event, and it was an academic event. And that's how intelligent these students can be. It's not what I did. I was available, yes. I still remember the game.
Yeah. Do you know what he did after college?
Yeah. He went west, and he got married at that time. His mother was the secretary to Richard Foster. I don't know if you've ever heard. He wrote the spiritual book called Simplicity, and many, many scholars will refer to his work. So Lyle winds up with his wife in the Colorado Springs area, but as far as continuous contact, I'm sure they have children. They're busy, rightfully so. But I have other students. One resident told me within the last 24 hours, one of either children or could be a grandchild somewhere in their family has taken me, and when she saw me, she said to her mother or grandmother, "He's the best teacher I've ever had." And I do hold 2 plaques that voted one as who is the best educator for that year. I don't know that any other professor has received that distinction. And it's somewhere hid, I suppose, in some of my boxes in downsizing. But it's been a privilege of mine just to get to meet you. And I honestly feel that you're going to be one of those that are going to show up in one way or another. Oh man, I shouldn't do this to you. but I can't. When I reminisce like this, there's so many. There's a fellow by the name of Kelly. I took some post-high school work while I was at Roswell, working at television.
Mm-hmm.
After all, I had done some before in high school, where I took several courses.
Yeah.
His father was a commandant of the New Mexico Military Institute. He had his own shop in the backyard. And so he already was a licensed engineer. My job was as a technical director. He sat next to me, but I was taking some of his same classes he was taking. He, of course, still got the A always.
Mm-hmm.
But if I needed help, I could turn to him, and while he was making sure TV was going on correctly, he would help.
Mm-hmm.
But oil was discovered in Roswell about that time. And so I'm going to say several families, oil well families, moved in and had new homes built. One of these is now completed. And when they turned on the switch for the lights, it didn't work. And their wiring ran underneath the floor, which was of concrete.
Yeah.
They went to two different electrical companies, that's their job,
Mm-hmm.
and asked them, can you tell us where it is so that we can fix it? It's in this room, it's in this room, but we cannot be more precise than that. We just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I would say, I know a high school kid. He had his own shop. On science fairs, he would get first no matter what he brought to the table.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he went over there. He went to his home. He constructed a type of loop antenna. I wasn't in there, all I know is that's. Then he went in that room and he says, right there, if you dig up that part, break the concrete right there, you will find that's where the problem is.
Wow.
Well, what choice did they have? They'd asked the other two companies, and the experts didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And here's a young whippersnapper, your age, and he's an engineer already,
Mm-hmm.
licensed, working in TV. They dug there, and it was right there, and it was repaired with minimal cost.
Wow.
He got second place at the national one time because his unit didn't work there. The humidity was too high and different than Roswell.
Mm-hmm.
See, I can recall some of these names and incidents that I've had the privilege of being just like you. When I see you downtown now, and then I saw his name show up. It doesn't have to show up there. It could be word of mouth.
Mm-hmm.
You'll do it.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks. I'm sorry I took too much of your time.
No, this is perfect. We can keep going if you have some more stories.
No, enough is enough. Life's been good.
Mm-hmm. All right.
You'll do just fine. I'm more interested in you,
Mm-hmm.
quite frankly, than anything that has allowed me to accomplish that which I have accomplished. I've worn out a lot of red pens. Because when I read the newspaper, I still circle all the misspelled English words that people don't know. And today, you can look on TV and see they're scrolling. They must be the dumbest people I have ever seen. They don't know how to spell when.
Mm-hmm.
It may come out WHAN and they don't change it.
Mm-hmm.
It runs the next scroll line and there's another misspelled word.
Yeah.
Man,
Yeah. It's a pet peeve.
thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for letting me interview you. Very interesting.
Well, I hope whatever your way of disseminating, that it was worth your while.
Oh, it was. It was more than worth. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
It's a privilege of mine.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you go at home.